Now the pressure's on me. My name's Michael Tidwell, and you might be wondering, like, oh, is this going to be this like really boring presentation, or is this going to be some like really interactive workshop, or is this just going to be some demo of some guy who just did something, right? And the answer is none of the above. I haven't prepared anything, but I promise you I will try to entertain you and kind of explain what I've been working on. Unfortunately, I bit off a ton for this workshop, and yeah, I got very stuck many times. And anyways, I will show you what I've done, what I'm talking about, and a little bit of what the hell this time slot is even about. So for about for 5 years, I've been working at a company that's been focused on Lightning payments, and specifically or especially early days on how that integrates with gaming. I am a firm believer that gaming is a great way for any technology to sort of take off and get roots and for you to understand it. I really believe that a big gap is going to be if and when a bunch of these layer twos that are currently being worked on end up starting to work and be useful. It's like, where can you go and actually test a transaction, do something where you're like, oh, it works. Like, oh, blah, blah, blah. For Lightning, does anyone remember what website that really was? Pollo Feed. That's a good one. So Pollo Feed. There's Satoshi's Place. There's a few websites besides like the Lightning LARP torch passing that was going on. And what I'm doing is I'm building a generic website where you can pretty much go and test the coolest, latest, newest features of Bitcoin in a fun way. Okay, and I want to explain what that means in my head. So one, the game shouldn't be bottable, meaning, oh, the more accounts I create, the more I can manipulate the game, blah, blah, blah. I solved that problem by making much of the cool parts of the game some sort of monetary transaction, either receiving or sending. I mean, at some point, obviously bots aren't just going to pay me to look at some game. The other one is I wanted to make it not life destroying. So some sort of crazy addictive tapper or something that was like really weird. So my version of that is, and I'm about to explain, a single shared world map. And this is called SatoshiSettlers.com. Is mobile friendly if you wanted to look at it. And the idea is the whole world is the Bitcoin blockchain. Okay. So if I go to the latest block height, so like 99999, it will just take me to the latest block height. The latest block that was mined is 890915 according to my game. So you can check like a real block explorer if you want to see, the cross reference. And then when 890916 gets mined, let me get rid of this. A new block should form right here, and then 917, then 918, etc. So you have this idea where, I'm going to go back to the Genesis block here. So the whole world is sort of Bitcoin kind of based in terms of like the world is the Bitcoin blockchain data represented in something called a Ulam spiral. So you start with 0 in the middle, and then you wrap your way around. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And then the further out to the edge you go, the newer the blocks, right? Okay. Now, what am I doing? Well, I'm letting people buy land. I'm letting people, and again, this is not some like NFT blockchain Ponzi scheme. This is, hey, I just want to manipulate the map with a fun interaction. Okay. So I am not doing any sort of token or anything. This is, for this case, this is to show off how you can spend Lightning, how refunds could potentially happen, stuff like that. So for instance, let's look at block 69, and I let people leave messages. So what I'm doing is, if you want to steal what the previous person had, you have to pay double what they paid, but it's just a one-time transaction. There's no residual income. There's no like trickle down economics or anything. You just pay whatever the last person paid, but double, and then they receive that money, right? And then now you're left owning the prestigious block that you just bought, right? So this isn't necessarily an investment. Does that make sense? You're not going to make money off of this game, but if someone steals from you, they have to pay double what you paid, and then you get your refund. Okay, so if you put 1,000 sats, someone steals it, you get that 1,000 sats back. So if you lose your land, at least you get your money back. Is the idea. And I also for the pain and angst of you losing that block, I just make sure I top you up well above what you paid. Like in terms of like if you paid 1,000, I might give you 1,050 or 1,100 just to make sure like it's rounded up to the to a full payment and they don't feel like you got gypped. So you do I pay out like 110%, but then the guy just paid before double, so it's not like I'm short on sats when that happens. Okay, well, anyways, so there's ideas here for advertisement. There's ideas here for flexing, shit talking. At one point, I was showing people's lightning addresses, and I decided to take that away for privacy. But that's sort of an interesting sort of idea I've had to deal with. The other thing that's kind of cool that might not be needed in the future when Bolt 12 takes off. Does anyone know what Bolt 12 is? So Bolt 12 can be used in a couple interesting ways. And one specific way is refunds. And I'm going to maybe butcher this, but let me try to explain when I talk to Eric Decker or Christian Decker and Rusty Russell's. So the idea is just the fact that I paid you with a Bolt 12 invoice gives you enough information to then refund me back if you want to, which I think is a really powerful thing. You cannot do that normally right now with a Lightning payment. If I pay you in Lightning, you're like, hey, I want to pay you back. Well, I need some way to generate this invoice for you by either knowing like you generate an invoice for me or I do some interactive thing with like Lightning address. And that's what I'm doing here. So right now, every time you buy a piece of land on this game, it's a requirement. You have to give me a valid Lightning address. And I also check that Lightning address. And then once I verify, yes, this Lightning address is real, I only then allow you to buy the block because I need to be able to refund you that money. And I'm using Lightning address to sort of make that refund process possible, if that makes sense. So this is the game. And I think the funny part is you might be wondering like, okay, why is there like a keyboard right here? And also, why is it cut off? Well, I don't know why it's cut off. That's a great question. And now it's not even there. So I'm actually, if I go, oh, I know why. Okay. Yeah, something, I don't know. But if I go to something that doesn't have any activity, the keyboard, even the keyboard now is sort of truncated. Interesting. So building this game has been on hard mode. Okay. Hard mode, let me tell you why. This is not using JavaScript. This is using something called WebAssembly. And you might be wondering, like, what am I doing? Why am I using a web? Why don't I just use Unity? Why don't I just make like native web apps or where you can go to the Google Apple Store? Well, I'm a really firm believer that Apple and Google are making it where eventually, like, there is going to be no freedom tech, like in terms of the monopoly of what they're doing with fees and permissions and all this. And in my opinion, the web is still the free bastion of hope for games like this, because if I were to host this, if I were to put this on like Google or Apple, first off, they would be upset because I'm not giving them a 30% cut on transactions and blah, blah, blah. I'm using Bitcoin. I might get banned randomly. And with hosting it just directly on a website, you kind of go past those issues immediately. And I think it's kind of cool, the idea of like saying, hey, check out this game. It's a Bitcoin game. You can test Lightning on it. You can test stuff in the future on it with whatever layer 2 or, I have on here also Nostr Wallet Connect, Nostr Wallet Auth, like a bunch of cool like Nostr login, OTP, OAuth ideas. And it's a fun little place to test out Bitcoin and Bitcoin adjacent technologies. if I get banned on the Apple or Google store, first off, I made these like native games. I've compiled them. I've took the time to like process them and put them on. And I can't use these platforms. Big waste of time. So I decided a big waste of time myself in a different way, which was make like this crazy WebAssembly game where WebAssembly wasn't even really, in my opinion, ready to be used when I started working on this about 4 years ago. So this is a very like part-time hobby project that I'm working on, but I do put in sometimes quite a bit of hours trying to get this thing working. And it is using a Canvas DOM object in the web browser, and then it pretty much just renders everything on the back end using a Rust binary that got transpiled into a WASM binary. So you might be wondering, like, okay, I thought web could just do like JavaScript and CSS and HTML. Well, your browser is like the most amazing application pretty much that you can have on your computer, because it can also do like everything. It can also run programs like this WebAssembly programs. It can access, your GPU with shader code. And if you tried to just do this in JavaScript, and you're clever, you could get it to work, right? But the cool idea is with WebAssembly, you're able to render and utilize very efficient, fast code. Uh, all the inputs, it is sandbox, so all the inputs and everything that you want to interact with this binary with are through JavaScript, so like mouse clicks and stuff like that. But all your like crunching and processing and logic is all done in a very fast, like I said, Rust binary. That's a WebAssembly binary. So that is the game. I unfortunately did not have enough time to work on a presentation because I was just trying to get this to be hosted on the internet till like, I don't know, 4 a.m. last night. And that was after me coding for 24 hours straight. So I was like, oh, I'm dead. I wanted to talk about, the motive. So now that you kind of have a little bit of background, like, oh, trying to get past this Google and Apple monopoly, I'm trying to build this like really cool thing for Bitcoiners to like come to and test like Bitcoin and Bitcoin adjacent technologies in a non-scammy way, or as non-scammy as possible, and also support server costs. Now that you kind of get that idea of what I'm trying to do, let me show you the newest sort of feature that I'm pushing out, and that you can test too if you want to. This is a workshop. You can do some of this with me if you want. And right now the new version, I don't know how like technical. I was in like merge dependency hell last night, trying to get like 2 branches of the same repo in an Actic server on 2 different sets of routes. And I was trying to be clever, and then I haven't touched this code in like 9 months on one of the clients I'm trying to backwards compatible it to, and then all these dependencies are broken, even though I have pegged versions in my cargo.toml, and like WASM has its own version, and I have no clue what the version was I used 9 months ago. And yeah, anyways, it's been a fun week getting this ready. And I do mean, like, my wife is probably going to kill me. Like, I've been sleeping 2 to 3 hours a day trying to get this workshop ready, and I was really hoping to have this really fun interactive, but this is going to be more just like, hey, this is my progress so far, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But I do want to show you my progress because I think it's very cool. So this is the first time you're able to see the Satoshi Settlers world map by zooming all the way out. And I think that's pretty cool. Before, when the game first started, you could only see 9 blocks at a time. And then if you wanted to move, you would double click in the direction that you wanted to move. And that's why a lot of the activity is centered around the Genesis block, because people didn't really want to travel too far to look at the game, right? So the first blocks that were bought were all around this area right here. And then you can see there's still a cluster. So then the game improved, and I made where you can see 25 blocks at a time before you had to move. And now we're finally to the point. And you might be wondering, like, well, why is this so hard? It's just a grid of colors and all this kind of stuff. Well, I'm going to show you some really cool things that this does. And it's kind of interesting. I've learned a lot doing game development, a lot of like level of detail, culling, and some certain strategies for performance. And I've never been more thankful. I've never respected more in application a web app than Google Maps after doing this little shitty version of Google Maps on the Bitcoin blockchain. Because if you think about Google Maps, you zoom out immediately. It might lag a little bit, but it lets you zoom out immediately. Then it post renders. You zoom in, and then it immediately starts giving you information about that area, street details, improve. You start seeing restaurants. You can click on them. You get information on the left-hand side. Look at this. You click on something. Click on something. Get information on the left-hand side. Bam, Google Maps, essentially. I mean, did I just do what Google Maps took 20 years to do? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I have a ton of respect for Google Maps after working on this, because I never really considered the problems of culling and using shaders within the web browser was new territory for me. And originally I was just trying to just render these things in a canvas as pixels and all this kind of stuff. And the game would just lag to shit. Doesn't matter what computer you had. And you have to remember, web browsers are sort of sandbox on how much memory they can use and stuff like this. You can't just use it's not like you're playing some Diablo game in 4K or something. This is your web browser protects you from people like me. You know what I mean? So if I go up here, it's like, yeah. So I'm using 1.2 gigs of memory right now. So it's like no joke, right? Now you might be funny enough. You might go to like a random website and it's using 2 gigs of memory. You don't even realize it. So check your memory usage. If you're not playing a game, be suspicious on why they're wanting so much, why it's using so much memory. But for this, it makes sense. I'm like, you literally have the Bitcoin blockchain in your web browser, right? And where do I want to go with this? So back to Google Maps, culling, right? So that might be a term that y'all aren't really familiar with, but so each of these blocks right now is a 96, we'll just say 100 by 100 pixel sort of resolution, right? 100 by 100, roughly speaking, of pixels that I'm rendering for you. And originally I was just rendering them, wasn't using a GPU in any efficient way, just doing this all like normal, like how maybe a naive web developer would do. And the more and more you, even with not rendering things not on screen, so trying to be clever and say, hey, if this isn't on screen, don't worry about rendering it. Like I was even doing fancy things like that. If you zoomed out like this, the game would your web browser would immediately just crash, right? And what I'm doing now is every time. So this is what took me a very long time, and I'm not joking. This probably took me. I'm not a very good coder. I've had to learn a lot of these things on the job. So on the hobby project, this probably took me, no lie, like 4 or 5 months to figure out how to do in a good way. And that's why I was like, oh, BitBlockBooms and Avery, yeah, I'll have this ready. Like I've been working on like this key piece a lot, where essentially as you zoom out, you don't render the full texture, but you actually render like a subset of it. And the further you zoom out, those 100 by 100 blocks essentially become 2 by 2 representations that the GPU is interested in showing. The cool part is you can still sort of see stuff from afar, right? The people that were helping me with this online were like, what the hell are you doing? Why would you want to spawn almost 1 million individual entities that then all have their own state, that then all can be clickable, and then all can, and I'm like, because like whenever you're online asking for help from like smart people, and then you start saying stuff about like crypto or Bitcoin, they're like, oh, I don't want to help you anymore. So I had to like make sure it's like, oh, it's a land ownership game, it's a fun click, so I really love the Bevy community. So this is using the backend is Bevy web engine, but let's just pause just for a sec. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Does anyone know how much time I have left? 20 minutes? Okay. So let's just pause for 1 second. Web browsers, text box. I feel like Kamala, like the passage of time, these things. Okay. So a text box. I know you're going to think I'm silly. Let's just think about a text box for a second. Because I had to. I never thought about text boxes before this game. And here I am. I'm like, oh, I just needed some text boxes, right? And then you can click tab. It goes to the next one. You can type. Okay. A text box. you have to be able to select it. Okay, if you select it, do you want to show anything? Do you want to like highlight it? Do you want to have a cursor? Do you want to have a position of that cursor? What if you have a position of that cursor and you have some text in that text box, and then you go to another text box? Well, now you have to store where that cursor position was. You have to store the buffer of all the bytes of all the characters in that text box. So when you go back, you can then tell the keyboard, hey, I want to then resume this buffer of input. And it's like, wait, what? I thought it was just a text box. And then when you have to build one from scratch, when you don't get to use HTML, it's a big fucking pain in the butt. And you know, doing this, and then like, I feel like this project is like every 6 months, I look back at myself and I just say, why the hell did I not use JavaScript? I'm such an idiot. And then I like figure out the problem. Like, I'm a genius, WASM all the way, baby. Let's go. And then a couple months later, I'm like, dude, if I just used JavaScript, my life would be so much easier. Oh my God. So do I know if this project would be like for instance, if you go to Satoshi's place, if y'all know what that is, right? Shout out to Satoshi's place. So if you go here, right, all, you know, JavaScript, and it's like, oh, it's fast. Well, you have to remember, this is like a picture. Each one of these pixels is literally one pixel. You don't get to click on these things and zoom in and potentially spawn a 3D environment, drop the little man, you know, on Google Maps and then see Street View. Versus my version, I've tested some stuff like this where I've gone into 3D dimensional blocks, despawn the background. I can do these things in the future, you know, 2 weeks, right? But when you're doing stuff like this, and when you're doing stuff like this, when you first start working on this, you compare it to like Satoshi's place. You're like, oh, this will be easy. It'll be easy to spawn everything and render everything without crashing the web browser. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm destroying these web browser computers, and they're all getting destroyed when they go to this game because, anyways, all right. So let's show off. Let's show off what I like, the newest version of the game. So if you did want to go to the newest version of the game, right now you go to satoshisellers.com. Make sure you're an incognito browser, because if you also, the new version is not mobile friendly. It does work, but there is no way to move or zoom out because you need like keyboard inputs. Yeah, pinch to zoom only works in the old version. I haven't enabled that in the new version yet. Okay, so back to so if you did want to look at this and you do have a laptop, it's guest, and then I think I called it full map boom or bitmap boom. And then otherwise, if you're on mobile, you can just click guest, play as guest, and then just play as guest, and then it'll just work on mobile as well. If you want to like play along, and like if you buy something and you want to tell me, I can like go to it in the maps too. If you want to do that, I'll show how that works. All right, so right now this is the full map mode, and if I'm already able to say, oh crap, I can spawn every single block of Bitcoin on a map. Well, the cool part is, now that I have this working, where can we take this? What can we take this to the next level? So now it's like, okay, if I can already spawn everything, why not just make all these different colors? Because if I'm already spawning everything, there's no extra lift to make all these different colors. So what if I say, hey, I have these filters right here: fee, block time, block transaction count, block size, target difficulty changes, leading zeros, excess work, and version header. Let's populate the world with blockchain data, with cool metadata of the Bitcoin blockchain. So if we look at fees, see if it works. Boom, fees, and this is the blockchain in terms of fees, and it's kind of cool because it's kind of like we're like archaeologists, we're kind of like looking at like layers of sediment of time of Bitcoin, because everything starts in the middle and then works its way outward. You sort of get like time periods where like the fees were really high, right? Like I think like the highest fee time right here was like this little white strip, and you see right here that means 10 plus Bitcoin fees were in those blocks, right? And then you can be like, well, that's really cool, you know, like what block was, you know, what blocks are these? And it's like, okay, you can see like this was around block 500,000, 517. So if you want to investigate further, you could see like that one. So yeah, so this has been like the cool thing. Like how now you might be wondering like, well, how do I have all this data in a web browser? Well, I've spent a lot of time compressing and optimizing browser storage. So right now, holding every single block as metadata um, is not actually all that bad. Like it's a couple megabytes, right? So I'm like, well, let's just keep increasing the filters until it gets ridiculous. So I created all these filters for testing and cool stuff. So the idea is, okay, you can come to this website, support the game, buy like a block for like a few sats, whatever. But you can also use it as like a fun way to say, hey, can I find like some interesting block? And this has been like really cool for me because it's created sort of this like weird ad hoc learning journey for me, because I keep thinking like, oh, my code's broken. There's no way someone paid 300 Bitcoin for this transaction, because like it shows like this anomalous color, right? But sure enough, like I check other like mempool.space, I'll check another block explorer, like, oh no, that's like, oh, it's working as designed. It's just cool because you're able to find weird, anomalous, weird kind of cool patterns for Bitcoin. So like block time, something that's cool is you see these blue blocks. Well, blue blocks mean negative block time, which means like, okay, let's say I find something at 10 p.m. Well, the next block is at like 9:50 p.m. So it's like in the past, but it's ahead. And I'm like, well, what? Like, and then I'm like, okay, like let's map that out. So like negative blocks are blue. And then you get to see like, well, how often are negative blocks being found, right? And then when did it start? Because originally there was no negative blocks. Like the first one was this one, and it was only by a few seconds. So, anyways, there's so this, like I said, this goes back to I'm like mapping out data on the Bitcoin blockchain, and it's creating me like, okay, my shit's not working. To wait, it is working. We'll say like 50% of the time, and then it's like, oh, this is real. Like, oh, why is this happening? And then me going to Stack Overflow or something, or ChatGPT, or asking like, hey, what's going on with why is this possible? So here's transaction count, and the cool part is you can start seeing like when blocks get filled up, stuff like that. I really wish that this projector was at a high resolution. I would say that if you have like a really good monitor and you go to this on your computer, it looks better for what that's worth. But you can see like the first transactions, right? These were like sparse, like one transaction per block. And then you get like, okay, 9,000 plus transactions per block are like the white space, right? Yeah, block size. I'm trying to get it to like where it looks. I don't want to zoom all the way out because the weird weird patterns that are forming. Like if I go like this, you see like this weird stuff. So I'm trying to like find some sort of sweet spot. There is target difficulty. So every 2016 blocks, Bitcoin changes how difficult it is to mine. But you might be wondering, well, what about this big space in the middle? Well, that's because for a very long time, Bitcoin didn't change its difficulty because blocks weren't being mined fast enough or slow enough, etc. Like it started with like the base difficulty and then never exceeded that until this halving period right here, which is kind of cool to see. You can see like the block where it's like, oh, this shit's getting real. Miners are actually starting to dedicate their CPUs for this. You can see the exact date, the exact block that happens very quickly. And I think this is like a fun way because you can figure out this stuff if you have all this data indexed and you're writing queries or whatever. But to be able to visualize it, you can very quickly, because you have to know what question to ask, right? If you don't know what question to ask, this is when this gets really cool because then you're just kind of like looking at everything, right? There is, so we just did target difficulty. Now this is a cool one. Difficulty changes. So you can see if Bitcoin got easier or harder over a period of time, right? And you can see like by how much, because there's thresholds. Bitcoin can only get so much more difficult in the next halving period, and it can only get so much easier in the next halving period. And you can see like the first difficulty period where Bitcoin got easier. Like, oh, what happened? Can I map this to a historical, like real world incident? Did energy prices go up? Did China ban Bitcoin? Did the US go pro Bitcoin? Did GPUs come out for that? Did ASICs get, start coming out? Like you can start seeing like, oh, there's a large period where like Bitcoin just started going up 10 to 30% every difficulty period. That's probably like ASICs, right? Right. So that's kind of crazy. There is leading zeros. So how many zeros in the hash in bits do the blocks have? I think this is like, I would like this one framed. If anyone wants to frame this one for me, But I think this is cool. And then something like really, really interesting. I know this is going to sound crazy. So this is the leading zeros of Bitcoin. Does that make sense? Everyone get that? You know how the hash has a bunch of zeros, your proof of work, blah, blah, blah. Okay, everyone here knows Bitcoin? All right, cool. The craziest part about all this is, so black is like the minimum amount of zeros that you needed when Bitcoin first came out. If you scan this QR code that gets generated by this, it's Satoshi's private keys. And I just was blown the fuck away that he encapsulated. And the other part is he encapsulated ahead of time because he used some of these private keys down here. And it's just like, how did he foresee like this would just perfectly line? I don't know. Bitcoin's very mysterious. For those, anyways, just kidding. All right. So I just showed you leading zeros. This is excess work. So excess work is sort of like this. Oh, you cannot see that at all. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. So excess work is kind of like this beautiful like star galaxy thing where it's like, which blocks were the most lucky? And when I say lucky, there is no advantage to this luck concept, but I kind of like invented it where it's like, hey, how many excessive zeros did you have that you like didn't really need, but like you would have found like, anyways, it's sort of like a misleading thing, but I think it's kind of interesting to see. And you can see like every once in a while, you'll see like a white star, right? And that's one that got significantly lucky where we're talking 14 plus leading zeros and bits. And, there's only like a handful of these. Like when I say a handful, like 20, right? Out of 800 plus thousand, almost 900,000, there's like 20 or 30 of these like white ones. So I think this is like another kind of cool thing where it's like, okay, we're doing like NFTs without the scam. I think, whatever you think about NFTs, I'm very like self-conscious about like, I think a lot of this tech is super cool. I just want to do it in the right way, if that makes sense. And you could potentially say like, oh, like this block has a bunch of excess work. I would have never found this without this weird block explorer. Oh, let me buy this block in terms of the game. Like, kind of cool things like that. So that was some other ideas. All right. This last filter that I currently have enabled is called version header. And I think this one is probably the most interesting. And it's alphabetically last too. So version header is the version of the Bitcoin block, right? So when Bitcoin first came out, it was version 1, right? That's this like brown space right here, this like spot right here. And for a long time, we used version 1. But the cool part is you're able to graphically see the upgrade time it took measured in horizontal x-axis pixels. You know what I mean? So the upgrade process from 1 to 2 took approximately, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pixels of width. Like I think that's kind of cool that you can actually see like, oh, this is the upgrade process. You can see when people started going off and then eventually everyone was running version 2. I think that's really, really cool. And then same for other ones. And then you get to this point where it's like, okay, what's going on? It's like cotton candy, popcorn, like what the hell? And then this made me realize, and by the way, creating this right here took me a long time. Respect that little, we're almost done. Yeah. But I was like, what's going on here? So again, learning journey. What's going on with the block header? Are people using this for entropy when they're mining? Is it for something else? Is it, well, this helps me, ask. And then, okay, some of the version bits are now used for entropy and some aren't. And only a certain subset of the version header now actually represents the version. And some represents like flags that don't necessarily represent the version. And now this is like, cool. So now I can upgrade my block explorer to then represent like, okay, let me figure out what like the byte location is in these like, what's a version header? 4 bytes? Any Bitcoiners here? I don't know Bitcoin. Anyways, so I can like see like, oh, if I know this area represents like, hey, do I want to do this or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I can now represent that here. But I would have never even known to ask that question if I didn't see the data in the first place, if that makes sense, right? So This is the gamified block explorer I've been working on, where you can interact with these blocks. You can like support the server by buying these blocks and leaving a message, changing the color in the player color mode. So you can go in here and like be like, oh, I like the color blue or red. So like if you can literally go, let me clear and say I like this block. You can type in red. You can type in green. Look at that. Look at that. Great UX, right? You just type in a name of a color. You can even type in Bitcoin orange. Boom, Bitcoin orange. Look at it. Amazing magic. How does this work? Right. Yeah, this is the main part of the presentation right here. But I think it's cool to be like, how do you support like this community blockchain fun thing with like server costs and stuff? And I think it's like, oh, let people like fuck with your game. Let them draw a dick, you know? And it's like, boom, that just costs someone like a couple dollars worth of Bitcoin, you know, lightning payment. And like, okay, cool. That pays for my server costs for the day. So, and I do have other ideas of like making the, you know, creating more gamified aspects of the Bitcoin blockchain. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to those. Something cool is I have this idea of like Hal Finney or like some like person like running around, like running Bitcoin. And whenever you like buy a block, you'll like just go ahead and like run to that block as like a cool like gesture of like thank you, you know? So I was originally I was going to be like, all right, someone buy a block, and then we'll like watch him like run around, right? And then meanwhile, I'm getting paid for all the transactions. I'm like, oh, look how much fun we're having, yeah. But I wasn't actually able to get to that part, unfortunately. 2 weeks, they'll be enabled, and yeah, I'm trying to figure out if any. I know we're like pretty much pushed on time because this has like a stop in the 45 minute mark. Does anyone have any questions, or does anyone want to comment on anything? I'll take that, if any. Yeah. Yeah, the client's open source. It's not, so the reason why I don't like say like this is the source code is because the source code is it's going through a lot of like soul searching right now, and I want to make like the source code actually like readable except for me, like before I like say like this is the source code, make a pull request, because I'm scared that's like right now there's 2 clients of the game supported by the same backend server, which has been a nightmare. And I'm trying to consolidate everything to be this new full map mode, or this is the full map mode. But you can see like I can't do much in this game versus this game is like fully featured. And when this version of the game has the features of this version of the game, right? I'm just showing you 2 images as if that means anything. Then I'm going to deprecate the old one. I'll probably clean up the code and then push. It's both of these clients are open source right now, but it's not like in a very open source friendly way, if that makes sense. You can literally just look at the source code. But if you were to like be like, oh, I want to make sure it's doing what I think it's doing, yeah, well, good luck. You know, like I mean, unless you really know how to write, you know, Rust or something. So, so are you on map in the web browser? Are you on map 12? So in an incognito browser or like another browser, go back to the website, click play guest, and then click full map mode. Okay. And then click the letter P. It's a secret because every time someone downloads all the Bitcoin data to their web browser, I have to spend like 5 or 10 cents of like data bandwidth, you know? So it's like, ooh, you got to know to click the letter P, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So, and the funny part is if you click the letter P, it starts downloading 50,000 blocks at a time. So if you click the filters, you get to like see it like expand out over time, yeah, as you start downloading it. Yeah, if any, I don't know. Now everyone come up here and buy a block, and the presentation will be over. And yeah, does anyone else have any questions or? Yeah. So the reasons why I didn't use JavaScript is because I wanted to make this a very long lasting game that might have 3D environments, that might have a lot of processing requirements. And I wanted to use the new shiny tech, which is WebAssembly. That's sort of like, so I made this a learning journey for myself. I was like, okay, let me like learn WebAssembly by making this fun game. And then, so it's kind of a twofer. I think it's the best in class tech and it's getting way better. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was like really bad. Like, think about it. Like, if you have to like implement and write the code to like make a clipboard work and get by the security of the web browser, that's like tough. It's tough business to convince a web browser that I want to use the clipboard. I want to use the clipboard web browser. The web browser's like, well, you don't have a text box selected. I was like, I promise you, this is a text box. And it's like some shitty little text box I made, but it's like it's really tough. It makes me, like I said, like every 6 months or something, I'm just like, oh, why don't I just use JavaScript? But those are actually happening like way less. It used to happen every 2 weeks. Now it's happening every 6 months. Eventually, it won't happen anymore. The better WebAssembly gets, but yeah. Does that sort of answer your question? Yeah. So this is like a hobby game for me. I also want to learn like the new. I don't want to be you know, at a conference and then someone's presenting on WebAssembly and me have no idea what they're talking about. So this is my way of doing that. Okay. Meta joke fail. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up? Does anyone want to buy a block and prove that this works? Did it break? What? The QR code wouldn't come up? Are you on full map mode? No, full map mode doesn't work. You have to use the old. You got to use the old version. Full map boom does not allow you to pay anything. Yeah, sorry about that. Very, very confusing. What? It loaded. Okay, it loaded without crashing. All right. I do want to say at like 2-3 a.m. yesterday, none of this was working. And everything was kind of coming together at the last moment. So I'm very happy that I was at least able to show you the full map, show you the block filters. And thank you so much for checking out this. It's a work in progress. Hopefully, if you see me next year, this will be like way even better ahead. So thank you so much.